The movie opens with interviews of veterans Joseph, Paul, Bill, Rod, and Earl, providing insight into their war experiences and the human resilience they demonstrated. Bill explains why some chose the then lesser-known Airborne Division. Then it shifts to June 5, 1944, at a makeshift airfield where Easy Company's paratroopers are preparing to jump into Normandy, France. A weather-induced delay is announced by their leader, Thomas Meehan III, causing disappointment. During the delay, Lewis Nixon and Richard Winters reflect on their time with Easy Company and their former leader, Captain Herbert Sobel. Then it flashes back 2 years to Camp Toccoa, Georgia, where a new parachute combat platoon is being formed. Their strict commander, Herbert Sobel, denies weekend passes for minor infractions. Upon finding several infractions, the weekend passes for the entire company are canceled, and they are ordered to run up the trail of a nearby mountain, Currahee. The intense heat makes the 3-mile uphill and downhill run, within 50 minutes, challenging. Lieutenant Winters motivates the men throughout the run and continues to inspire teamwork at the summit. Sobel conducts an inspection in the barracks, finding unauthorized items and deeming personal items, like letters, as distractions. He also discovers a can of peaches, presumed stolen from the mess hall, leading to the discharge of the responsible private. The platoon completes a grueling 12-mile hike without drinking from their canteens. A soldier caught drinking secretly is ordered by Sobel to redo the march. Sobel instructs Winters to discipline 6 men without clear reasons. Both Sobel and Winters receive promotions. Winters is assigned mess hall duty, and a spaghetti lunch is planned, but Sobel interrupts it for a run in the rain. Several men suffer from cramps and vomit, but despite Sobel's discouragement, they help each other and boost morale. Winters joins in, indicating his training program's effectiveness. The company completes jump training successfully. They receive their wings medals and leave for additional training in North Carolina. Sobel's poor leadership leads the platoon astray during patrol, resulting in a 95% casualty rate. The company then heads to Brooklyn, boards the Samaria, and departs for England for further training ahead of the large-scale invasion of Europe. In Aldbourne, Easy Company undergoes intense combat training. Sobel's incompetence is revealed again during field training when they reach a barbed wire fence and realize they're off course. Sergeant George Luce is asked to impersonate Colonel Horton and instruct Sobel to cut the fence, leading to cows escaping from a nearby farm. Sobel is reprimanded by Lieutenant Colonel Strayer, who informs him that Horton was on leave. Winters is accused of disobeying Sobel's orders and requests a court-martial to clear his name, as he hadn't received the orders or a claimed phone call from Sobel. Winters is assigned to manage the mess hall during the court-martial process, preventing him from joining Easy Company's invasion. In protest, several sergeants threaten to resign collectively, risking execution. Colonel Sink reprimands them, discharges Sergeant Harris, demotes Sergeant Ranney, and dismisses the rest due to the impending invasion. However, he reassigns Sobel to a non-combat jump training facility in response to the protest. Winters is cleared and returns to Easy Company. He takes several simulation flights for the mission, and although the exact location isn't disclosed, he and Lieutenant Meehan guess it's Normandy. Once confirmed, the NCOs of Easy Company share this information with the rest. The 101st and 82nd Airborne units are on standby for 24 hours, awaiting clear weather. Sergeant John Martin receives a letter about Bill Garner's brother's death in action at Monte Cassino, Italy, but tries to hide it from Bill. However, Bill finds the letter in John's coat, leaving him upset but not completely shattered. On the day of the drop, the troopers, already carrying heavy loads, receive additional equipment. They board their planes, visibly anxious, and head for France. Winters, sitting by the open hatch, ponders the upcoming mission. As D-Day begins, Easy Company and other paratroopers board C-47s, preparing to jump behind enemy lines. German anti-aircraft fire destroys many planes, including those of Easy Company's CO, First Lieutenant Thomas Mee, and the 3rds. Numerous paratroopers, including First Lieutenant Richard Winters, jumps from their planes when signaled by the pilot, who has just lost his co-pilot to anti-aircraft fire. Many lose their weapons and supplies during the jump and miss their drop zones. After landing, Winters pairs up with Private John Hall from Able Company, who has lost his radio pack. Winters, armed only with a combat knife, gathers scattered paratroopers, including 2nd Lieutenant Carwood Lipton and others from the 82nd Airborne Division. Using a compass, he leads them towards a rally point near Saint-Mère-Église, picking up more soldiers along the way. Upon encountering German forces, Garnier disobeys Winters' command and opens fire prematurely, leading to a brief but intense firefight. The Americans emerge victorious without any casualties. Lipton gives Winters a German rifle, and they find a dead paratrooper with an M1 rifle, which Winters takes. Under Lieutenant Winters' command, the soldiers continue their march and reach a farm where most of Easy Company is gathered. They encounter German POWs near the rally point. Malarkey, surprised by a POW from Oregon, witnesses First Lieutenant Ronald Spears from Dog Company execute the POWs, sparing one. Major Strayer orders Winters to lead an assault on Brecourt, where Germans have installed 4 cannons, causing heavy casualties on Utah Beach. Winters forms 2 squads and successfully ambushes the enemy. Despite Wynn's injury and Hall's death from a booby trap, they destroy the first 3 guns using explosives and grenades. Winters finds a map and decides to keep it. Dog Company, led by Spears, provides backup, captures the final gun, and they retreat. After the assault, the men rest and eat. Winters learns from Second Lieutenant Lewis Nixon that the map he found, which reveals all gun locations in Normandy, has been sent to Army intelligence. Winters marks the day as a day of firsts when he is offered a bottle of French wine by his comrades and vows to find peace after the war. On a sunny day in Normandy, a young paratrooper named Albert Blythe is spotted by 3 men who are surprised to see an Easy Company member since the drop. They've been fighting with the 502nd after getting lost, just like Blythe, who was trying to find Easy Company. They reach the town where the 506th is resting and meet Easy Company. Welsh instructs the 1st Platoon to move towards Carnotine to link up with the army from Omaha Beach. The next day, as Easy Company nears Carnotine, 2 men are shot down and the rest take cover in ditches. Lewis and Welsh find shelter behind a house, while Buck Compton and Winters rally the men. Despite casualties, they press on. Hubler and Lewes find a family hiding in a building they break into. Suddenly, they're bombarded by mortar and artillery fire, causing more casualties. Blythe, worn down by combat, retreats to an alley. Meanwhile, Malarkey and Muck, engaged in sniper fire, notice Father Maloney praying over the fallen soldiers. As the Germans retreat, Private Gordon and his assistant retaliate from a building. Winters assures Colonel Strayer and Lieutenant Nixon of their safety. However, a sniper's bullet ricochets into Winters' leg. Post-capturing Carnotine, the wounded are treated, including Winters. Doc Rowe treats Winters' wound and comments on his luck. Winters notices Blythe's blank expression and learns from Rowe that Blythe has lost his sight. Despite Winters' reassurance, Blythe remains visually impaired until suddenly his sight returns. As Easy Company marches, they come under machine gun and mortar fire, taking cover in the bushes and returning fire. At night, the Germans sing songs while the 2nd Battalion tries to stay awake. Sergeant Martin and Private Blythe share a foxhole until Welsh takes Martin's place. Blythe reveals to Welsh that he suffered from hysterical blindness. After Welsh leaves, Blythe confides in Spears about his fear and inaction. Spears advises Blythe to accept his mortality to be a true soldier. The next day, they are ambushed by a German force with tanks. The men defend themselves from their trenches with various weapons, as Blythe hides amidst the escalating gunfire. Colonel Strayer and Captain Nixon observe the retreating Fox and Dog companies as casualties increase. Blythe, overwhelmed, is encouraged by Winters to fight back. Inspired by Winters' calmness under fire, Blythe regains composure and joins the battle. The arrival of Sherman tanks from the 2nd Armored Division turns the tide, destroying most German tanks. The men cheer and advance, forcing the Germans to retreat. Blythe shoots a remaining German soldier, contributing to Easy Company's victory. After the battle, Blythe finds a flower in the pocket of the German soldier he shot and keeps it. 25 days after D-Day, Welsh and Nixon lead a patrol and take cover behind a cabin. Nixon seeks volunteers to investigate the cabin, and Blythe steps forward. As Blythe approaches the cabin, he is shot in the neck. Dukeman and Martin drag him to safety under covering fire. Rowe treats Blythe as Winters announces their withdrawal from the front line and impending return to England. Blythe is later hospitalized, appearing distant. Lipton announces they are returning to the front lines instead of England. After Easy Company's withdrawal, they had lost 65 men. Although it was initially reported that Blythe died in 1948, he actually recovered and died in 1967 while on active duty. Easy Company, having been relieved from the Normandy War, is now relaxing at a pub in England. Compton is engaged in a game of darts with Private Edward Heffron. Sergeant Garnier, Sergeant Martin, and Sergeant Randleman are evaluating Randleman's new squad of replacements. Garnier advises them to obey Randleman's orders in the field. Private Roy Cobb, upset that the replacements received a battalion unit citation for Easy's efforts in Normandy, confronts Miller about his ribbon. Miller, feeling downcast, leaves his ribbon behind. Randleman picks up the ribbon and reminds Cobb that he too didn't fight in Normandy due to an injury. Walter Gordon introduces the new company First Sergeant Lipton, who announces their next move, silences the men as they realize their break is over. Captains Nixon and Winters brief their men about Operation Market Garden, a high-risk mission to liberate Eindhoven and Holland. Holland, under British command. They anticipate crossing the Rhine River and defeating German forces swiftly, aiming to end the war by Christmas. Nixon informs them that the opposition in Holland is largely non-threatening. As preparations are underway, Captain Sobel, Easy Company's first CO, returns as the newly appointed Regimental S4 in charge of supplies. The operation commences with the men parachuting into Holland and being warmly welcomed in Eindhoven. Despite the celebrations, Nixon and Winters anticipate more resistance. In the midst of local women being publicly shamed for their relations with Germans, Nixon and Winters observe the arrival of Dutch resistance and tanks. On the eve of their patrol in Noonan, Corporal Hubler and Privates Webster and Klinken meet a Dutchman and his son, who is delighted by a chocolate bar from Webster. The next day, as they enter Noonan, Lieutenant Brewer is shot by a sniper, prompting the men to take cover while Randleman assists Brewer. In the midst of battle, one of the unit's Sherman tanks destroys a half-track. The men reach a town and take cover among its buildings. Sergeant Martin and Randleman identify a hidden Tiger tank, and Martin rushes to alert the British-operated Shermans. However, the British commander, unable to see the tank, refuses to damage a brick house to target it. As the Tiger tank advances, it destroys the leading Sherman. An MG-42 unit fires from a parapet, which is subsequently destroyed. Miller is killed in hiding, leaving Hashi and Garcia stunned. Compton is shot during retreat and insists on being left behind due to his weight, but the men refuse and carry him away using a door. With heavy casualties, Easy retreats as German forces strengthen their hold on Nguyen. Nixon survives a hit to his helmet. Randleman, trapped in a ditch and cut off from his unit, hides in a sewer pipe as Germans patrol the area. Randleman later finds a safer hideout in a nearby barn. As he plans his return to his unit, he encounters a local man and his daughter, also hiding in the barn. Noticing Randleman's injury, a large piece of shrapnel lodged in his shoulder, the man attempts to remove it. Struggling to grip it, Randleman hands him his bayonet, and after a few agonizing moments, the shrapnel is removed. As the man bandaged the wound, a commotion arose outside. A small German unit arrived and began inspecting the surrounding buildings. Randleman conceals his companions in the back of the barn, but they inadvertently drop a blood-stained cloth. A German soldier discovers the blood-stained cloth and investigates further into the barn. Randleman, hidden by the noise of nearby vehicles, attacks and kills the soldier, an act that shocks the young woman. Outside Noonan, several of Randleman's comrades in the retreat area decide to search for him and quietly head towards the village. Randleman buries the killed soldier in the barn straw. As things quiet down, the flags down a passing army jeep, he is taken back to Easy's gathering point, where his return is met with joy. As Easy continues their retreat, Nixon notes that they'll need to find a different route into Germany due to Operation Market Garden's failure. On October 17, 1944, in Holland, Captain Winters gazes out the window of the room he shares with Captain Nixon. Nixon, however, refuses to wake up, prompting Winters to splash him with a cup of liquid, which effectively rouses him. Nixon, enraged, reveals that the liquid was his own urine and hurls his pillow at a laughing Winters. As they near the HQ, Nixon remarks that they are the only unit to have pushed the Germans back across the Rhine. Winters is tasked with providing Colonel Sinke a detailed battle report about a crossroads he secured with one of Easy's squads a month prior. As Winters sets off to complete this task, he begins to reminisce about the battle. He recalls the moment when Liepgott, bearing a minor but bleeding neck wound, rushed in with the rest of his patrol, one of whom was severely injured. Upon discovering a nearby German company, Winters instructs Lipton to gather Easy's first squad for a mission to the crossroads. They scout the area and find the German company puzzlingly firing an MG-42 towards a battalion headquarters located miles away and beyond their range. Winters organizes an attack, directing the mortar squads to bombard the road while machine gunners provide cover. The rest of the squad, led by Winters, targets vulnerable soldiers on the road. They successfully eliminate several Germans and quickly retreat to regroup and strategize their next move. As daylight breaks, Winters orders a charge, instructing the squad to fix their bayonets and charge at the sight of red smoke. He leads the charge, but due to slow smoke deployment, the soldiers lag behind. Winters reaches the line first, shooting a young German soldier and several others. Despite the initial success of the surprise attack, another German company emerges, leading to an intense firefight. Winters calls for heavy artillery support. Private Webster and Sergeant Martin capture some soldiers, one of whom claims to be Polish, despite speaking German. Martin, noticing their SS uniforms, is skeptical of their Polish identity. The team manages to overpower the Germans and secure the area, with Martin rounding up 11 prisoners. Winters confronts an irate Liepgard, who is firing at the surviving Germans, attempting to flee the battlefield. Winters orders Liepgard to cease fire and escort the prisoners back to Battalion CP. Distrusting Liepgard's fury, Winters orders him to discard all his ammunition, leaving only one round. He warns him that killing a prisoner prisoner could provoke the others to retaliate and possibly escape. During the attack, Webster sustains a leg injury. Nixon arrives and Winters requests a drink of water. Following the skirmish, Colonel Sink arrives to evaluate the situation and informs Winters of his promotion to battalion commander. Winters accepts and recommends First Lieutenant Moose as his replacement. During a mission briefing, Moose is shot by a jittery sentry, leaving him unable to lead easy. Winters, suffering from PTSD, takes a break in Paris. Their rest in Mourmelon-le-Grand is cut short when Winters and Nixon announce an immediate departure to Belgium. They head to Bastogne, a village under German attack. Colonel Sink orders Winters and Easy to defend this key junction town. Colonel Strayer joins them after his London leave. Lieutenant George Rice delivers ammunition and hints at a potential encirclement, but Winters remains calm, reminding him that paratroopers are trained for such situations. Easy Company is deployed to the forests of Bastogne, Belgium, to counter a surprise German attack. Bastogne's strategic location makes it a prime target for German tanks. Despite shortages of essentials, Easy and other units hold their positions. Doc Rowe, lost in the fog, accidentally stumbles upon the German front line and retreats quietly. He later sees Captain Winters shaving with icy water, who spots a stray German soldier and orders him to surrender. Winters finds a bandage on the soldier, a valuable find given their low medical supplies. Winters, Captain Nixon, and several NCOs discuss their unit's challenges with Colonel Sink and Brigadier General Tony McAuliffe. Despite the challenges, they are ordered to hold their position. Winters advises Rowe to coordinate with the company's other medic for more supplies. During a mission, Rowe's companion Babe falls into an enemy foxhole but escapes unharmed. Despite numerous attacks and limited resources, Rowe treats the injured soldiers. He scavenges for supplies, even borrowing scissors from Percanti. When he runs out of morphine, others donate theirs. Rowe is unable to treat Garnier's urinary infection due to a lack of penicillin. He meets a Belgian nurse, Renee, while escorting a wounded man, and they bond over their shared French language. Despite Rowe's reassurances, Renee views her healing touch as a curse. They fail to save a severely injured man, leaving them frustrated. Renee gives Rowe a chocolate bar before he leaves. Rowe wants to join a frontline squad, but Martin advises against it. The squad is ambushed, and John Julian, the youngest member, is hit in the neck. Unable to rescue him due to heavy enemy fire, they are forced to leave Julian behind, causing distress, especially to Babe. During a clear morning, the Army Air Corps conducts a large supply drop. Most of the supplies land in Bastogne, but Easy Company narrowly escapes a Luftwaffe attack. A man is paralyzed from a chest wound during another German assault, and despite Rowe's efforts, he can't be saved. Lieutenant Welch is injured, and a tired Rowe takes a break before assisting him. Rowe is ordered to rest and eat by Winters. He shares his chocolate bar with Babe, who is upset in another foxhole, lifting his spirits. Rowe believes he may have inherited some healing abilities from his faith healer grandmother, Treaders, as suggested by Babe's companion. However, Rowe accidentally cuts Babe's hand while assisting a wounded comrade. Bastogne is bombed by the Germans. Rowe, while escorting another injured man to the church, sees the church being bombed. He rushes to the site, finding only Renee's bandana in the debris. Back at the front lines, Rowe joins Babe in a foxhole. He notices Babe's untreated hand and uses Renee's bandana as a bandage. For the first time, Rowe addresses Babe by his nickname, marking a change in their relationship. Babe, amused, mimics Rowe's accent, while Rowe, smiling, reminds him to stay vigilant on the front line. The next day, Hubler, Private Hashi, and Sergeant Christensen ambushes a German SS officer on horseback. Hubler shoots the officer with his M1 and finds a Luger pistol on the body, which he proudly shows to his comrades. Compton asks about Lieutenant Dyke, Easy Company's CO, but Lipton doesn't know his whereabouts. Suddenly, a gunshot is heard, and the men take cover. Hashi reports that Hubler has accidentally shot himself. Despite their efforts, they can't find the wound in time, and Hubler dies from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his femoral artery from the Luger in his pocket. Lipton informs Captain Winters of the incident and reveals that Dyke's location is unknown when asked why Dyke isn't reporting the incident. The next morning, Percanti, Christensen, and Harold Webb discuss a rumor about Lieutenant Spears allegedly shooting German POWs in Normandy after offering them cigarettes. When Spears appears and criticizes their foxhole, they defend it, citing Dyke's approval. Spears offering them a cigarette causes discomfort due to the rumor. Easy Company, back at the front line near Foy, endures numerous shellings while strengthening their foxholes. Joe Toy loses his right leg in a shell explosion, and Garnier, while trying to save Toy, injures his own right leg. This traumatic incident leads to Compton's withdrawal from the front line. Intense night shelling sees Penkala and Muck's foxhole hit directly, an event witnessed by Luce. Another shell lands near Luce and Lipton's foxhole but doesn't explode. Lipton, shaken, accepts a cigarette from Luce, despite not being a smoker. Muck and Penkala's deaths deeply affect their friend Malarkey, and to cheer him up, Lipton gives him Hubler's Luger for his younger brother. Lipton warns Winters of potential heavy casualties in the upcoming Foy attack if Dyke isn't replaced. As the men prepare for the attack the next day, Winters briefs Dyke on the plan. The attack begins with the men charging across an open field towards the town, with Lipton urging his men to move swiftly and continuously. Foley splits off with the first platoon to secure a small shack. In an open field, Dyke halts Easy Company's advance, frustrating Winters, and orders Radium and George Luce to radio Foley. Dyke instructs Foley to return to a visible position. As Foley arrives, Dyke appears to be succumbing to battle stress. He orders Foley to lead a risky flanking mission, but they are pinned down by a sniper. Winters, unable to take over due to his battalion XO role, calls for Spears to replace Dyke. Spears orders the demolition of a building and directs the first platoon to proceed straight in, disregarding Dyke's plan. After taking out a sniper, the men move into Foy and come across another company under attack. In the midst of the German assault, Spears bravely charges through the enemy line, stunning the Germans into inaction. His daring act includes not just linking up with the company, but also returning the same way. Post-capturing Foy, the men spend the night listening to a choir. Lipton, working overnight, counts only 63 men left from the original 145 who entered Bastogne. Now leading the company, Spears talks with Lipton about recent events. While Lipton appreciates Spears' leadership, Spears reveals that the real leader who supported them was Lipton. He also shares that Winters recommended Lipton for a battlefield commission, which Sink approved, promoting Lipton to lieutenant. Private Webster returns to Easy Company after recovering from a wound. His absence from key battles leads to resentment among his comrades. Despite being part of the first platoon, he faces further resentment in the second platoon, especially from Liepgott. The company plans a patrol to capture German soldiers for intelligence, and Second Lieutenant Jones joins them. Both Jones and Webster struggle to gain acceptance. Webster manages to exclude Liepgott from the patrol by informing Winters that they both speak German and there are 16 men instead of 15. The patrol crosses a river, with one boat capsizing. Private Jackson is seriously injured during an encounter with German soldiers. The platoon captures 3 Germans, but leaves one behind during their retreat. Jackson dies back at headquarters, leading to some men wanting revenge. However, Jones maintains order. The following morning, Winters and Spears inspect the building rigged with explosives from the previous patrol. Lieutenant Colonel Sink orders another patrol for that night, which Winters explains will involve a deeper incursion into enemy territory for more prisoners. However, he instructs the men to rest and report back that they were unable to capture any prisoners. The men are relieved, and the rigged building is detonated. Lipton receives a battlefield commission and is promoted to second lieutenant. After participating in combat, Lieutenant Jones and Webster are fully accepted into EZ Company, with Webster being welcomed back as they depart Hagenau. Captain Nixon returns to his unit near Munich, distraught after surviving a combat jump where his plane was destroyed, killing all other paratroopers on board. As he grapples with the task of notifying the families of the deceased, Winters confronts him about his heavy drinking and informs him of his demotion from Battalion HQ by Sink. He advises Nixon to assure the families that their sons died heroically. Meanwhile, Private O'Keefe, a replacement who hasn't seen combat, is sent to an outpost with Percanti. O'Keefe's enthusiasm irks Percanti, who vents his frustration about the hardships he endured on the battlefield. The company then heads to their new headquarters in Landsberg to confront the SS, as ordered by Hitler to wage a guerrilla war in the Alps. On their journey, they see over 300,000 surrendering Germans and witness the execution of 3 Germans by French soldiers, leaving O'Keefe shaken. Nixon intrudes into a German house seeking liquor and breaks a picture of a German officer, earning a cold stare from the officer's wife. Sergeants Randleman, Christensen, Percanti, and Luce, along with O'Keefe, discover a German concentration camp during a patrol. Percanti rushes back to Landsberg to inform Winters. Upon arrival, the company is horrified by the dreadful conditions of the prisoners. Lieutenant Lipton orders the men to provide blankets, food, and water to the prisoners. Liepgard translates a prisoner's account, revealing that they are Jews, Poles, or Gypsies, deemed undesirable by the Germans. Days earlier, SS guards had set fire to huts with prisoners inside, shot at those who resisted, and then fled, leaving the survivors in dire conditions. Many prisoners were on the brink of death, severely ill or starving, with some collapsing as they tried to approach the Americans. Perconti finds a tearful O'Keefe, but leaves him be. Easy Company rushes to Landsberg to gather supplies for the survivors, with Webster threatening a protesting baker at gunpoint, accusing him of Nazi collaboration. Upon returning with supplies, they distribute them among the prisoners. However, Colonel Sink and a battlefield surgeon instruct Winters and Nixon to stop feeding the survivors, as their weakened systems can't handle large food intake and they need careful monitoring during recovery. The prisoners are kept within the camp's fence to prevent potential disease spread. In the evening at Battalion HQ, Winters informs Nixon that similar camps are being discovered across Eastern Europe, and local Germans will assist in cleanup operations starting the next day. Nixon encounters a woman from a house he had previously intruded upon during the cleanup. Nixon announces Hitler's suicide to Easy Company, but states the war isn't over. They're ordered to the Eagle's Nest, with Webster expressing that Hitler should have ended his life 3 years earlier. As the war winds down, Winters relaxes by a lake. Upon reaching the Eagle's Nest, they find a deceased German officer who committed suicide. Winters announces the end of the war in Europe as the men unwind. He shows Nixon a vast private wine cellar, orders the distribution of vintage alcohol to the soldiers, and allows Nixon first pick. The men watch footage of ongoing Pacific battles. Soldiers with 85 points or more are eligible for discharge and return home. A lottery is conducted to send one person from each company home, regardless of their points. Shifty from Easy Company wins, as his was the only name entered due to his low points despite long service. Even with the war over in Europe and the expected SS guerrilla units not showing up, Easy Company's men grapple with fatigue, nerves, and boredom, leading to perilous outcomes. Liebgott, seeking vengeance for the Jews, kills a German officer who managed a camp, with Webster and Siski accompanying him. Liebgott interrogates the officer and begins yelling in German and English, causing Webster to leave the room for a smoke. Despite Webster's attempts to dissuade him, Liebgott shoots the officer in the neck. Liebgott's gun jams as he tries to fire another round, allowing the officer to escape. Liebgott urges Webster to shoot the fleeing officer, but he refuses, and Siski does it instead. With the European war over, the men prepare for the Pacific. Winters' request to transfer early is denied due to his ties with Easy Company. Stranded in Germany, the men resort to drinking. A replacement soldier, inebriated, kills a British and German officer and injures Staff Sergeant Grant, who is taken for brain surgery. The replacement is beaten by Easy Company until Spears intervenes, nearly killing him, but ultimately refraining. The next morning, German soldiers gather for their formal surrender. Captain Sobel avoids saluting Winters, who calls him back, reminding him that they salute the rank, not the person. Sobel salutes and departs. A German general requests to address his men, which Lipton permits, and Liebgott translates his speech for Winters. The general's words resonate with both his soldiers and Easy Company, leading to reflections on their shared war experiences. As the men play baseball, Winters recounts their post-war lives, highlighting their continued connections despite leading separate lives. Winters announces the Japanese surrender, signifying the end of the war and their reprieve from deployment to the Pacific. The story concludes with interviews of the real Easy Company members, including Winters, Malarkey, Babe, Garnier, Lipton, Shifty, and Martin. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.